Flowchart symbols, we are already aware of them. So in the question number one, I already solved this in the class. The recording is also available on YouTube. Question number two, you can also do it easily. You might have some problems in question number three, and I think four can be done as well. Sir, what's your, I did not get it. I'll send you the link, don't worry. Okay, so this is the question number three. Question number three says that there is a heating system that is being controlled by sensors and a computer. The temperature must be kept between 15 degrees and 12 degrees. If 30 degrees is exceeded, a warning message is generated and the system shuts down. A flowchart of the process is shown below. Some of the items are missing. Complete the flowchart using the item number only from the list of the given items. Right here, you have some numbers of items given. Item 1 is convert digital to analog data using ADC. Is the data digital? Is temperature 15 degree? Okay. Output warning message sends all of that. So, right here in this question, first of all, it starts with the start command. After the start command, it says that you have to read the data from temperature sensor. Now, after reading the data, the first thing that you are going to do in this box, this is the box that you are writing here. That means that in this part, they have input the data. That means that they have read the data. Now, in the second part, this is a decision box. Now, when it comes to a decision box, you need to look for the options from right here that gives you two statements. Like when I refer to these ones, like for example, you can see that I have this one is temperature greater than 15, less than 25, greater than 30 degrees. These all can be used in decision makings. Then these are the some instructions that I should be sending to the computer. But even before I should process the data, the first thing I need to look into that is the data analog or digital. So the first part says that convert the data to digital using ADC. How do I know this? Because first of all, when you are going to input data into your computer system, the first thing is going to be like data is always in analog form. So before it goes into processing, first of all, it needs to be converted from analog to digital. So this is why I'm going to write 2 here. Why 2? Because I am asking my computer that is your data digital? If your data is not digital, then what it will do, it is going to convert the data convert the data to digital using the ADC operator. But just in case if the data is already in the analog form, then for this part now I have these values. I have I have temperature less than 15, greater than 25, greater than 30. So for this part, first of all, we are going to start from the highest one, right? So this is going to be the second pass part. In the first part, we are going to identify that if you are taking any input from the data, is it analog? So it has to be converted into the digital form so that it can be processed by the data. Now after that, I'm going to write here 5 and I'm starting with the highest one. 5 is your temperature greater than 30 degrees? If this is yes, then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to output a warning message. That is right here. I'm going to output a error message that is right here. But just in case if this is not greater than 30, then what I can do is that now I have the option. You can either write the 3 here or you can either write 4 here as well. It's totally up to you. Right now I'm writing 3. So then again, if your temperature is less than 15, if this is the case, then I can say that send the signal to turn the heater on. I can write here 8. And for the last part, I can write here 4, and I can write here 7 to turn the heater off, because it was stated in the question that we are controlling the temperature that is from 15 and 25. So it says that if 30 degrees exceeds, a warning message is generated. So that's what I did. Right here, if 30 degrees, a warning message is being generated. Then this is the third part, which says that if your temperature is less than 15 degrees, that means it is going to send the signal to turn the heater on. And if your temperature is greater than 25, then it is going to send the signal to turn the temperature off. So for this part, for the highest temperature, which is 5. So if we have the highest temperature, then I'm going to shut it down by writing 9 here. So do you have any confusions in this part? It's basically a scenario question. Like whenever you input data into your program, the first thing you do is that you convert your analog to digital. After then, you applied 3 of the conditions. So it really doesn't matter if out of 3 you write 4 here, or out of 4 you write 3 here, but writing 5 here is important because you start with the maximum level of input. And second reason is that because it also gives you this box to stop it, and you can only stop this when your temperature is going to exceed 30 degrees. This is why I have written 5 here, because right now you don't have the option to stop it. So that means that the 30 degrees temperature is only going to come here. Other than that, you can swap the places of these values. I mean to say that this part can be swapped. Like you don't have to be definite. You can write here 4, you can write here 3, and you can swap them as well. But this will remain on its place because it is the highest temperature. And if it exceeds, then you need to stop. And due to this box, I'm writing 5 here as well. Then for the practice part, you can do 4 on your own. So do you want my help with this question? Question number 5. Do you want my help in any of the other questions? Okay. You can practice them and then get back to me if you have any problems. So after the pseudocode part, I will be starting the pseudocode. Okay, so a short introduction of your pseudocode I have already given you. First of all, this is not a programming language. If there is any programming language, that means that you have the task to execute it, right? But you cannot execute a pseudocode because it is just a way to define your algorithm, or it is just a way to define that how your algorithm will actually work. It describes what an algorithm do by having similar words that are to English. Like for example, count, for example, sum. So these are the words that are much similar to your English, and they are even understandable by human as well. Because it would be really difficult if you are working with any Python or Visual Basics or any other programming language, because the other person would not have an idea that what are you working with. So if you want to work with the pseudocode, I have some number of steps that we need to understand prior. Like first is the option for the variables, right? So why do we use variables? So variables we use because these are basically the memory locations in which a value can be stored. So it's like if I'm giving the value for A, so or any value that I give will be stored in A. As you can see right here that I have used an arrow key and I have written 10. So that means that 10 has been given the value of A and B has the value of 7. So in variables, the values can be changed and the values can be stored. This is for the variables part. Like variables, I also have the option of constants as well. And when it comes to constants, constants means those values that can never be changed. Like for example, pi is to value 3.14. There are 24 hours in a day. There are 365 days in a year, like this. So these are known as variables. Second thing for learning a pseudocode is your arithmetic operators. So arithmetic operators are those such as plus, minus, divide, multiply. These are your operators that are used for like all sort of calculations. So if you want to multiply, if you want to divide, if you want to work out with any of the calculations part, you will be using arithmetic operators. You also have the assignment operator as well. Assignment operator is the process of writing or giving a value to a variable. So it's like you are giving count the value of 7. So you are going to use this arrow sign because this is going to represent your assignment operator. Initialization is also one of the process, and the process of initialization is that before you take any variable, this is basically the process of assigning an initial value to your variable before the value needs to be read. So for example, if you have taken student marks and you are trying to store student marks into your pseudocode or into your program, so even before that, you are requested to initialize it. Initialize means that you need to set it to 0, because even before we start the pseudocode and we use any of the variables, so we need to set the initial value to 0 so that we can have the ability to store more values into that. What if we did 7 assign operator count? Yes, you can do that, but write it like count arrow key 7. You will write it in this way if you want to start your count from 7. Then if you want to take the values into your pseudocode, you are going to use input command. So you can also use input, read and enter, but input is the one that is mostly used and it is used to assign the value. You can also use output command as well, that is used to generate the results, generate the output. Like whenever you are writing a program, you have two parts of that. So you need to write the code that is going to show it to your user. So these are some steps for a pseudocode. First one, like what is a pseudocode, what is a variable, what is an assignment operator, initialization, input, output. Now, to write a pseudocode, I have the conditional statements. I discussed this already with you. The conditional statements are those when you want to decide which action should be taken. So if you have two actions, if you have two conditions, like which action you want to take, either true, either false. Like, for example, if you wish to take a class, or even if you do not wish to take a class, so you will be having two options. So whenever you have two options, you use conditional statements. There are two types of conditional statements. One is the if, then, else, and if. The second is case of otherwise and case. So here is the syntax for your if, then, else, and if. It says that if your age is greater than 18, then you should output child, else you should output adult, and if. So you need to make sure that you are writing these words as capital letters: if, then, else, and if output, because these are reserved words for your pseudocode. Anything that you give in inverted commas is known as your comments, is known as your statement messages that is going to be output to the user. It's like a message. Whenever you are writing a variable, make sure that your first letter is capital. What about output? Do we write it? Yes, yes, we will also be writing this in the capital as well. And you also need to make sure that you give spaces when writing them. Are you seeing that how I have indented this? Like, first of all, I have written if, then I have given some space, then it says then some more space, then output, then space. So you can see that how it is linking with each other. In example number two, you can see that if found is true, that means output successful, else output not successful. So anything that comes in your inverted commas, this means that this will be outputted to your user as it is. That means that it is going to be used only when you are giving or producing display, maybe a sentence or maybe a comment to your user. So do you have any problems in this loop, the if, then, else, and if? Sayyid Rayan Ahmed, do you have any problems? Okay. Okay, so check this example. Now, in this example, you can see that it says if your height is greater than 1 or weight is greater than 2. So these are your parameter conditions. So it says that if height is greater than 1 or weight is greater than 20. Now, when I'm using this or function or operator, if you are using and or not, so this is going to be an example of a Boolean operator. Arithmetic operators are plus, minus, divide, multiply, all of them, which is responsible for your calculations. But your Boolean operators are those which are responsible for your and or not. So if this is an or operator between two parameter conditions, this means that at least one have to be satisfied. Okay. If I'm using an or between two parameter conditions, this means at least one have to be satisfied. But if I'm using the and Boolean operator, this means both of them conditions have to be satisfied. I do not have a choice. For example, it says height should be greater than 1 or weight should be greater than 20. So either height should be greater than 1 or weight should be greater than 20. At least one should have to be satisfied. This will work. But in this case, age should be greater than 5 and age should be less than 70. Both of the conditions should be satisfied for it to be work. Are you getting it? The concept of or and? Okay. So after that, you can see it that it says that if this is the condition, then you can play this game, else it is going to output you are too small or you are too young to play it. And if now, do you have any problems in this example? Okay. Now here is another example. Now, if you have multiple number of conditions, like if like more number of ifs, and you want to write it with the if then else and if, so this is known as a nested if statement. So you can use a nested if statement if you have more numbers of ifs or if you have more number of if conditions. So for example, if it is a output, please enter your marks. Now you can see that first of all it says output. Output is an example of a suitable prompt message. Suitable prompt message. What are these? These are to tell your users that please enter your marks, because we are doing it because the user is not going to see output. Output is a function. I have written output, please enter your marks. So with this programming statement for pseudocode, it is going to output on the user screen, please enter your marks. Okay, no problem. Please enter your mark. So you need to input percentage marks. So if your percentage marks is less than 0 or your percentage marks are greater than 100, then you need to output invalid marks. Else, so here you can see the nested statements, like this is a nested condition, if then else. Now within that I have another if then else. So these are known as a nested if statements. It's like a nest. So when you have multiple conditions, you can use a nested if statement. So if this is the condition, then it's fine. Then here is another else, and into that there is another else. But please make sure that if you are putting a more number of else, so you also need to end those statements. Like I started this f, this is if, I ended it here. This else is ended it right here. And I believe for ending this if, there is another going to be end right here. So this is going to be an example where you are this is a nested if statement. One similar example of this is for the case of otherwise. Now, in case of otherwise and case, this is again the example of your selectional statements. So in selectional statements, they basically give you a choice between different values. So right here, you can see that the case of grade. So it says that if A is the answer, then you need to output excellent. So in case of otherwise and case, the values of the variables decide the paths that needs to be taken. So this is why it says that if A is the grade, then you need to output excellent. If B is the grade, then you need to output good. If C is the grade, then you need to output average. Otherwise, you are going to output improvement is required, and case. So here is another case of choice. Like for example, if you press 1 on the keyboard, so it is going to add both of the number because it says number 1 plus number 2. If you presses 2 on the keyboard, so it is going to minus number 1 minus number 2. If you are going to press 3, so it is going to multiply. And if you are going to press 4, then it is going to divide. So these are basically some common examples of case of choice, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you have any problems in this case of grade or case of choice? Like case statements basically displays you days of the week. Like you have a variable, it has days from 1 till 7 inclusive. So you can see that how this works. So case of days, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see that the first day is Monday, the second day is Tuesday, the third day is Wednesday, And otherwise, if someone tries to enter 8, this is going to be an invalid choice because this does not contain in the 7 days of a week. Any problems in this? Okay, so did I give you some practice questions for the pseudocode? The practice questions are received. The answer is received from me, from Mr. Rayan. You have solved the questions. Those three questions which I sent to you. And I have certainly not received the answers from Sayyid Rayan Ahmed. Now, pseudocode for iterations. Iterations basically means repetition. If you want to repeat a task a number of times, or if you want to repeat something for a number of times, so if you are going to do it maybe with a human, so this is going to take a lot of efforts and a lot of time. But if you want to do it with the programming way, this is much more easier because your energy will be saved, your time will be saved, and your action will already be performed repeatedly by a piece of program or a piece of algorithm, and you can repeat it no matter how many times you want. So basically, actions are performed as a part of algorithm that needs repeating. So this is known as iteration. This is known as repetition. There are three types of your loop structures. The first one is known as fall to next. Now, when I will use fall to next, I will only use fall to next when I have a set number of repetitions, when I already know that I want to repeat it this times. Like for example, I want to repeat it 10 times. I want to repeat it 100 times. When I know it already, I will use fall to next. This is the example. It says that for counter 1 to 10 output good student next counter. Now, this one means that this is going to output uh good student 10 times. Like for example, I have my counter. This is going to, at first I'm going to type here good student, second is going to be good student, third is going to be good student, four is going to be good student, five is going to be good student, six is going to be good student, seven is going to be good student, and 8 is going to be good student, and 9 is going to be good student, and 10 is going to be good student, and then the program will end. So this is how the output is going to be generated, because I'm using a counter. A counter is being used to count the number of times you want to repeat it. And once I generate the single output, the next thing it says next counter. Next counter means that if you are done from 1 to 10, so you can continue from 2 to 10, from 3 to 10, for 4 to 10. So that's how. Another example of repetition iteration is repeat until. In terms of repeat until, the number of repeats is not known. Like you do not know how much times you want to repeat it, or you only comes to know how many times it is repeated at the end. So this should be completed at least once. So this is where the repeat until part, you can see that this one is the initialization part. Counter is 0, then it says repeat. Okay, it says output good student, it is going to output good student, and then it is going to increment the counter and output good student again. So how many times it is going to keeps on generating the output until your counter is greater than 9. So that means that when the answer reaches to the 10th counter, that means when it is greater than 9, this loop will stop automatically. Now, this loop needs to be worked at least once, because right now you do not know how many times you want to repeat it, and you only come to know how many times you want to repeat it at the end, because it says repeat this work until this. until statement is written and the and. So that's how it has to be repeated at least once. Why? Because you do not have a condition to stop this in the starting. Do you have any condition in these lines to stop it? No. To stop there is only condition at the end with the until part. That means you have to do it until this, and until is the end. So this is why it is known as that you need to repeat it. It should be repeated at least once, and it should be ended. Then I have the third part. The third part says while, do, and while. And in terms of while, do, and while, it says that the number of repeats is not known that may never be completed. Now, if you do not know how many times you want to repeat it, and you do not know, and it may never be completed, so you use a while, do, and while. So let's justify these. Now it says counter 0 while counter is less than 10. Input, do means input. It means that like do it. So output good student, and counter plus 1. While counter says that it may never be completed. Why is that? Because it is the condition in the starting. Counter should be less than 10. What if the counter is greater than 10? Then it will not work. But if your counter is less than 10, so it will start working. So the first condition justifies that this may never be completed. The second condition says that the number of repeats is not known. That means that you never know that when you are going to reach this part, like when is going to be a counter less than 10. So you never know, that keeps on repeating again and again. So do you have any problem in these three? For to, next, repeat until, and while, do, and while? I have some more examples here as well, like when I'm going to use repeat until C. When you don't know the number of iterations, actions are being repeated until a given condition is true. Actions or tasks, they should be completed as one. And repeat until is also known as post condition loop. Post condition loop means that it exits the loop and the end. So this is another example of repeat until right here. You can go through that. Then this is the second part, while, do, and while. While, do, and while says that it is used when the number of iterations is not known. Actions are only repeated while a condition is true. Like when actions are not true, it will not run. Another name for while, do, and while is precondition loop. This is a test for exiting the loop at the beginning. As you can see in this example, total is 0, output is the condition, input marks, and while marks is not equals to -1. This is the first condition. So if this is true, only then it will work. If it is not true, it will not work. We know it already. The input and output. Input is used for data entry like input name, input student marks. Output is used to display information onto the screen. Output names, output your name. That's it. Other than that, the next topic that I need to start is standard methods of solution, in which we have totaling, counting, maximum, minimum, average, bubble sort, linear sorts. These are some examples, but before than that, I am sharing with you some example questions or pseudocode that you need to complete.